Hello and welcome to another episode of Fundy Tidings. I'm your host, Jay Remer, and with me today is Kevin Theriault. Kevin is the fire chief for the town of St. Andrews and surrounding areas, including the wards of Shamcook and Bayside, as well as rural district of Bocabec. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Morning, Jay.
Thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure.
So I wanted to do this because I don't know very much about the fire department or fire departments in general, and I just figure if I don't, neither do a lot of people. And it's such an integral part of the community, and it's so well thought of in this community. I thought, what better thing to do than to talk to you? So what is the St. Andrews Fire Department all about?
Well, the St. Andrews Fire Department began in 1817 with a decree by the governor of New Brunswick at the time for the St. Andrews area to have fire wardens. So fire wardens had the authority to ask people to have fire buckets in their houses, ladders attached to their houses for getting on roofs, and pike poles for tearing things apart. And since then, we've developed over the years. In 1853, they purchased their first hand pumper, which was horse-drawn. We still have one that we display once in a while here in town. That was in service till 1923. And then they started purchasing gas-powered engines. Had approximately 75 members on the department back then. Today, we have 36 members. 2 full-time, myself and a driver-operator. We have a fleet of 3 fire trucks, a service truck, a boat, and a side-by-side. And hopefully in December, we'll have a brand new truck here that we can showcase. It'll have a 107-foot ladder on it, and it'll lead the way into the future for our fire service. So
that's very exciting. So let me just ask you a question, because the ladders that you see on people's roofs around here, is that a fire safety?
I think it's a carryover from back in the day. People go up and clean their chimneys and they mount a ladder on their roof. We wouldn't use them if we were there for a chimney fire or anything, but I think it's still a
interesting
fallback. Yes.
Little remnant. Yeah. I'd heard about the ladder truck being ordered, so that's fantastic.
We're very happy with that.
Yeah. So 30 volunteers. How do you go about getting volunteers?
We do different events throughout the year. We've always, members know people and people come in and ask about it. Hopefully this interview will result in some people knocking on our door, or maybe doors of their own fire stations, wherever they may be living. Volunteerism is unfortunately declining in the past few years, and it's getting harder and harder to find people to knock on your door and want to volunteer and be here and help the community. Part of it's the length of the training that we have to take. It's about a 200-hour course to become a first level 1 firefighter, but it's just everybody's so busy nowadays, so it's getting harder. But yeah, hopefully this show and other things will get some recruits.
Do most communities rely on volunteer fire departments?
They do, yes.
Especially rural communities. Yeah.
In the province of Brunswick, there's approximately 5,000 firefighters across the province, and approximately 85% of those are volunteer.
Wow, that's really quite something. So how do you become a member?
You can become a member by stopping in the station, picking up an application, or pulling one off our website or the town of St. Andrews websites under applications. Bring the application in, need a criminal record check, of course. And when we sit down with a group of our officers and do an interview with a prospective applicant, and then if we decide that they might go ahead and become a member, we'll take their name to the membership and let them know we're bringing them on. And then they start an orientation process, which lasts approximately 8 to 10 hours, depending on the person, and then they're on and can start responding to calls as a support firefighter. And
so that's actually not an onerous commitment.
No.
But as you go on and become more engaged, you need it's so from if you're mulling the idea of I'd like to become a volunteer firefighter, what is the time commitment really, including the training and the up maintenance?
Yeah, the original course, the firefighter level 1 course, takes about 200 hours, but it's spread out from January till May. so it's not too bad. It's a couple nights a week. Then other than that, it's meetings and in-house training and things like that. So we try to one night a week be at the station with the membership, either doing training evolutions or have a meeting just so everybody stays up on everything we're doing. And then of course it's dependent on how many calls we have. Last year we ran 187 calls, which was the busiest year we've ever had. But we had a major forest fire in the middle there,
Yes,
and a couple of major storms, so that boosted the call volume. But it is a commitment for sure, especially for somebody that has family. But it's rewarding at the end of the day. It's very, very rewarding.
Yeah, I would think so, because I notice a great camaraderie in the St. Andrews firefighter group. I mean, everybody's, very supportive. It's like a team.
Very much a team, family almost.
Yeah, for sure.
There's some members that we call mom and dad because they're there and you can go talk to them and they'll help out with anything. And and the rest of us are just their young ones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I know. Over the years, you hold annual special events.
Yes.
And would you like to talk about those and what their purpose is? And
Yeah. We do July 1st. We hold a pancake breakfast that we do as a fundraiser. All money goes back to the fire department. All the proceeds, I should say, go back to the fire department. We use that money to buy equipment and small tools and things like that we find would help our job be easier. We also use it for Christmas time. We do the Santa Claus parade, and after the parade we do a little get together here at the arena with Santa Claus and the young ones and young in heart, where Santa meets everybody and gives them a treat bag. And we have the skate with Santa after that, so all that fundraising goes towards that throughout the year.
The major costs of running the fire department, though, are borne by the town. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. We're through the town budget.
Right. So this is not a situation where you're looking for donations, particularly as much as manpower, maybe.
Manpower, firefighters.
Yeah. Are there other opportunities for volunteers to help at your
yes.
station other than firefighting?
Yeah, we have support roles. There's as much support goes on in the fire as there is the actual firefighting. We have auxiliary members that come in and help out with the fundraising events and special events throughout the year that we're involved in. So there's, you don't have to be a frontline running the burning house firefighter, but you get any support, good support.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the major thing that, is around safety. I mean, that fire safety, we're knock on wood, we're a very fortunate town in that we haven't had a major fire to wipe out the old historic buildings that are cheek by jowl, and it could be quite a serious situation over the years. And things, of course, have gotten better because certainly the Office of the Fire Marshal has created new regulations, so that any new builds have to meet standards and so forth. So that's really important. But what is the fire prevention messages that what can people do to keep their houses safer, and if they live out in the country and so forth?
Well, we can start by talking about smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Every house needs to have smoke alarms in it. The new code is every bedroom, hallways, and on each floor. The bedrooms are new because there's so many things people are charging nowadays. You have your cell phone, you have your iPad, everything's plugged in and charging. So they've adopted the code that their smoke alarm should be in all new buildings in the bedrooms. If you burn wood or oil or natural gas or propane, you need to have a carbon monoxide detector in your house. Things like that, fire extinguishers in the kitchen, just to help get out of the house if you need be. Things like that. So,
do you provide any kind of a service to go into someone's house, for instance, and give them advice?
We can. Yeah.
Or would that be something that the Office of the Fire Marshal would?
For houses, it would be us. If anybody wants to call the station and ask us to stop by, we can give you recommendations on where to place your smoke detectors, or if you need fire extinguishers or things like that. Just, and we have lots of pamphlets and information at the station that people can stop by and pick up. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I know there are a lot of commercial establishments in the town, and in fact, on Water Street alone, every building is commercial, residential,
Yes.
and has a commercial component, and commercial components require fire extinguishers, and I never learned as a kid how to operate a fire extinguisher. And it didn't occur to me until I had a staff and a big house, a commercial property, that if something actually happened, I don't know if anybody would know what to do.
Nope.
So there was a time where I think we got all the fire extinguishers out and with the employees, and we said, okay, this is how this works. That to me would be something that would be important.
It is.
Is that an active?
It's not overly active, but if anybody wants a little bit of fire extinguisher training, we can definitely stop by. A lot of people drop off their used fire extinguishers or their expired ones for us to dispose of, and if they're still charged, we use them for training.
Right.
So if you dropped off 5 or 6 fire extinguishers that were no longer useful, and somebody called in and said, could you come show us how to use one? We could bring those back and show them so they don't use their own fire extinguishers. And
well, I know that the fire extinguishers expire.
yes,
And I wouldn't take an expired fire extinguisher and just give it to you. I would take it to, in this case, St. Stephen, to have it recharged.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's something that the fire marshal is quite clear about. They want if your extinguisher is expired, they want it fixed.
Yep.
Now, oftentimes I will take it down there, and it's like it doesn't need anything, so to speak. But what actually happens to a fire extinguisher over time?
So a fire extinguisher over time, as it's just hanging on your wall, all the powder collapses to the bottom, and it packs in. So when you pull the pin to go fight a fire, instead of getting a 30 or 45 second shot of dry chemical coming out of it, it might only be 10 or 15 seconds. So taking it off the wall once a year, making sure it's still charged, turn it upside down, tap it lightly with a hammer or a rubber mallet, and loosen up the powder in it. It's something everybody can do at their own house.
Right.
Every 6 years, they need to have a visual inspection done by a certified inspector. So St. Stephen Fire does that. If they get used, of course, they need to be recharged. And every 12 years, they need to go in and have a pressure test done on the bottle. So it's all maintenance. Basically, it's on a 6-year cycle. And for the bigger ones, if you have the small little 2.5 pound fire extinguisher like you'd have in your kitchen, it's probably cheaper to go to the hardware store and purchase a new one.
Yeah. How important is it? Because to keep these fire extinguishers going, because it would seem to me that's the obvious answer is it's very important.
Very important, yes.
And is it so if fire extinguishers in the house is one thing, and I suppose you'd have one in your barn or your garage or whatever.
Yep.
What about people who live out in the country? And because there are any number of reasons for fires to start in the woods. What can people do to keep their houses safe and even their woodlots perhaps safer?
One thing we recommend is a new program to the East Coast. It's been used in the West and in the States for years. It's called Fire Smart. And their website's Fire Smart Canada. It's fairly easy to find. And they have a system on there where you can actually assess your property. So do you have gutters? Are they clean? Do you have cedar shingles? Is your wood piled against your house? Things like that. And they give suggestions on 3 zones around your house. The first is from the house out 1.5 meters, which is what they consider a non-combustible zone. So non-combustible or less combustible plants, using maybe rock instead of mulch for around your house, metal roofing, asphalt shingles, things like that. And then they go a little bit deeper from the 1.5 meters out to 10 meters. and they have different suggestions for shrubs and how to prune them, pruning up your trees 1.5 meters, 2 meters, so a ground fire can't climb the tree. And then from there out 30 meters from your house, the different things you can do out there, more pruning, picking up the dead wood, mulching it, hauling it away, things like that. And it's a very informative website. It has a lot of great information on it, and we are really highly recommending it for people in the area. Yeah.
Well, I think it's so important to be kind of up to speed, and it's not like these things change every year.
No.
Like the danger is the same, how you deal with it is the same, but it's not something that you're born with intuitively to know. So you need to be taught these things.
Exactly.
So do you encourage parents, like are there kids classes, or is there ways, do you go to schools to introduce things? How does that all work?
We go to the elementary school every fall for Fire Prevention Week. Usually we jump in on their SMART classes, so we see a couple classes a day, and we teach the basics of fire prevention, fire extinguishers, smoke alarms, what to do if you hear your smoke alarm go off. And another thing we do is show them how to make a fire plan of your house. So you know your house, but do you actually know how to get out of it at night if there's smoke? Do you have a spot to go to outside of the house for everybody to meet? And I usually recommend the students take it home and give it to their parents and have the parents do some homework.
All right.
Because chances are the parents are too busy to really think about that. And maybe a little reminder from little Johnny is all they need to say, oh yeah, right, we should sit down and practice a fire drill at home.
Yeah.
Right.
I know over the years, having dealt with the fire marshal, for 30 years, regulations change from time to time, and if all of a sudden I've built something and then my neighbor 5 years later builds the same thing, it's like, but he's making me do this. And so I assume that these regulations change for purposes of greater safety.
Yes.
And I know that when I did the Windsor House, the chimneys were a big deal. And they were lined with some magic potion. And the guy who put it in, he said, this is way ahead of code. And I'm wondering whether or not there are different gradations of, like, this is minimal, this is, that you get a little bit of bonus here, but this is the best that you can do.
Well,
is that available?
Maybe through manufacturers. Most of the codes are written to the minimum standard, so you at least need this, but anything above that is good. Mm-hmm. I really can't speak too deeply on the codes.
Right, but I'm just wondering whether or not are there areas that people are just maybe perhaps a little bit lax on, where they could sort of up their game pretty easily? Because you're the one that goes to the houses. It's like, not this again. That could be easily prevented.
Well, it's if they have a chimney and you're burning wood, it's cleaning the chimney on a regular basis, cleaning your pipes, removing the ashes. Things like that. Having your chimney swept by a professional chimney sweep. Having it inspected every year, make sure it's still in good shape to use. Having your fire extinguishers and your smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms in your house. Things like that.
I know that they, oftentimes you'll see on television, they'll say, change your fire detectors when the seasons change.
Yes.
And I know in some of the fire detectors that I have, they are old and they still work. Yep. And so I'm wondering, what is that all about?
The battery operated ones, it's highly recommended. They're replaced every 10 years. If they have their own battery, changed every 6 months. That way you always have a fresh battery in there, so it'll always work. After 10 years, the sensor starts to malfunction sometimes, and it's best just to replace them.
I think that's really important information. And is that sort of information available on your website? Or do you have a website?
Well, we do have a website. It's standrersfire.com. We have some information on there for sure. Smoke alarms, there's some pamphlets on that.
I'm just wondering what's the easiest way for people to access this information that's basic, but I know is overlooked by many people because I overlook it.
Yeah.
So if I overlook it, I assume others do.
So yeah, there is our website. The Provincial Fire Marshal Office has a website with pamphlets on it. And a company out of the States called NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, they are the ones that we all get our information from. So they have some great info on their website as well. And I have pamphlets upon pamphlets at the fire hall, and we're always willing to answer questions.
So there's plenty of information available to the public. So on a sort of a lighter note, you know, a lot of people are, you know, like one of the first questions you get asked when you're a kid is, what do you want to do when you grow up? And half of the kids either want to be a policeman or a fireman. So there's a fascination
There is.
with fire trucks and firemen and the gear and all of that kind of thing. So how, like the fire trucks that you have now, you can see that you can do old, less old, new. They have a longevity, which seems to be quite strong. What is the longevity, and how does a town, for instance, build into its plan replacement?
Okay. For a municipality, it's about every 20 years to replace a fire truck. And that's based on NFPA, again, out of the States. Their history of, you know, after 20 years, it costs too much to maintain a truck. Too many things could possibly go wrong with it. So they've set that 20-year timeline on it. And that's what we strive to do, is change them up every 20 years. So 20 to 25 range. Yeah.
I notice, being right on Water Street, a lot of times the vehicles will go by, and sometimes there's a fire truck, sometimes there are accompanying vehicles. So if you see something going on like that, how do you decide what vehicles have to go out? Because it requires somebody to drive them, and it's like in a volunteer situation, you got to get the people in from their work and all that kind of thing. How does that all unfold?
When a call comes in, we get paged out through a radio system, through our dispatch in St. John, and the members all respond to the station, and we have certain standard operating guidelines. So depending on what type of call it is, which units respond. If it's a structure fire, they all go. Chimney fire, 2 separate trucks go, and you know, medical rescues, 1 will go, maybe the half tunnel backing up with an extra crew. So you know, there's guidelines in place for what everything goes. Right now, we've actually come back to 2 full-time staff at the station, so we've hired a firefighter driver operator. So he's on duty during the day, and we rotate weekends on call. And we have probably 8 or 9 members right now that are also drivers. So we have a really good turnout, and we're able to get all the trucks out the door when we need to. So
I remember having to call the fire department a few years back because one of the smoke detectors went off, and it was interesting because there were no flames, it was hardly even any smoke, but there was that scent, and so I called the fire department, and they came right away. And you know, you've got 4 or 5 people walking in with all of their gear, and they might have brought a hose in, but I don't think so. But they had these gadgets, and they could go, and they found, like, they sourced exactly where this thing was, which was inside of a wall. They cut a square out, got the fire out, cleaned, and left. And you wouldn't have known anybody had ever been there. I was stunned. It was like, it's like, what just happened here? It was quite something. So I guess where I'm going with this is the advanced detection equipment that you have.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that at all?
It's the thermal imaging camera is what we'd use for that. And it sees differences in temperature. So we can use it to scan a wall, and a hot spot will shine out red on the screen. And that narrows down where there may be a fire in a wall or hidden behind something. And it saves a lot of time trying to track down those. We can smell it, but we can't see it calls, right?
Yeah, I was completely impressed with how so many people, all that, and nothing got. It was amazing. At any rate, enough about that. But I think that the St. Andrews Fire Department has been just amazing. Everybody has tremendous respect for you. And we just have a minute or so left. Is there anything that you'd like the viewers to take away as, like, if anything?
The biggest thing is be safe. Check your smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. Have your fire extinguishers checked. If you're going to have a campfire, check the provincial website. It's mbforestfirewatch.com or .ca, sorry, and that tells you if it's a burn day or not. It's actually really easy to use because it's just in 3 colors. If it's green, it's a burn day. If it's yellow, you can burn after 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. And if it's red, there's no burning.
Right.
So we ask everybody to follow that, especially if campfires near wooded areas or anything like that.
Right.
So be safe. That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
And if you've got some time on your hands, volunteer.
Volunteer. Come on up and see me. We'll give you an application today.
Well, thank you, Kevin, so much for coming on.
Thank
You've
you for
shared a
having me,
lot
Jay.
of really good information. And thank you for watching the show today. I look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Fundy Tidings.